and suits the mood just perfect. Thank you. Good morning and welcome home to the Monte Vista Unitarian Universalist congregation here in Montclair as we sit in the eye of the storm, my understanding. A little clarification on the announcements. I hope you all read the announcements last week. Holly Near and our gray hymnal describes us as gentle, angry people. Contrary to my mistyping in the announcements, we will not be having warfare. It is welfare. And that happened, the board caught it during the meeting and it was corrected, but I copied and pasted from the wrong set of notes. So we will never sing Onward You Soldiers. Anyway, today after the service on Zoom will be Justice Committee meeting, and if you want to learn about things to do about the weather and our climate, please attend. Janine sent the link saying basically use the service, same link as you use for the service to attend. There will be a focus group next Thursday night before choir practice here in the sanctuary. Other than that, I'm not clear on when we're going to do any others. Taco Tuesday on Tuesdays. Please check in and see what we do. And for now, I think that'll do us. Let's move on.
Good morning. I'm Julie Steinbach, your lay leader for the morning, and thank you, Ellen Worley, our board president. I don't know that you actually introduced yourself. And I'm welcoming you in the way that we do it every Sunday with the ringing of the gong. 3 times. Once for those who came before, the Tongva peoples, who were the original stewards of this land and first called it home. We also honor those founding members who imagined and planted this growing, thriving congregation. The second time, once for those of us who are here now, for our members and friends, our visitors, our staff, and our extended UU family, each essential to this beloved community we know as our own. And third, for those who will come, for all we haven't met yet, who will come to call our spiritual home, Monte Vista, their spiritual home in the days ahead. And we welcome also a visitor from the road, Phil, a Unitarian who travels. I just met him. And whoever else is out here that I haven't met, welcome. And before we go on to our chalice lighting, I have some opening words from the Manila congregation that will be happening, well, let's see, it's 2:30 in the morning there, so I guess it's already happened. But I just happened to see it on their Facebook page. So in solidarity with the Manila congregation, you are welcome here no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. You are welcome here to join us as we proclaim worth in our spiritual journeys. You are welcome to join us as we sing songs that uplift our very beings. You are welcome to join us in community as we learn, live, and love together. All are welcome as we worship that which gives us each meaning and value. No matter what you call this building, this hour, or this gathering of people, we worship as one body, illuminated by the light of the chalice. which will now be lit by our stalwart Calapayan partnership supporter and committee member, Maribel Dana.
Good morning. We light this chalice for us to be reminded that despite our imperfections, we are still blessed in so many different ways. May our hearts and minds always value the beauty in each one of us, knowing that each of us carries that little spark within. And if we collectively share our little spark, we can create a bigger light to illumine our bruised and broken world.
We have two chalices, our congregational chalice and the chalice for our partnership church in Calapayan that our children there made for us when we first entered the partnership 15 years ago. Let there be light. Thank you, Maribel. And now I invite you to stand as you're willing and able, and we will say first our affirmation and then stay standing for Spirit of Life, please. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve the world in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. And now we will also sing out the children using the words of the Reeb Children's Benediction, which will be on the screen here. Thank you. And now is our traditional time to share joys and concerns, and My iPad does not bring up the anybody on chat. I don't know if there's any notes in the back. I forgot to ask someone to bring those up. If anyone has any that we would like to share with the community. Chat is empty. Okay, so 2. We've got 2 coming. Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't have a name on this, but that we can embrace this idea altogether. My friend next door had a concussion, is looking at a few months of recovery. And I feel like we are all time traveling back to the 1970s when the snow covered mountains, when the snow covered the mountains, and this gives me joy. So we have a joy and concern from the same handwriting. So we hold you all in our heart, and let's just take a moment to hold those in our heart of the joys and concerns not expressed that we all have. Okay, thank you. Okay, our guest speaker here today was not able to join us as originally hoped, but fortunately we have a wonderful presentation that she did on video in November for the, January for the International Women's Convocation. Debra Pritchard is a UU from San Luis Obispo who has been passionately involved in climate change issues since she lived in the Philippines for 10 years. She went there, she'll tell you, at the age of 59, she joined the Peace Corps and went to the island of Palawan, which is the island closest to China, frankly, way at the western side of the archipelago. And after her Peace Corps stint, she ended up staying there for 10 years total. And she became radicalized about climate change, which had led her also to go to, as a delegate from the UUA, to go to the climate change conference in Egypt, known as COP, the Conference of the Parties, back in November. So she will talk about her experience in the Philippines and her experience at COP and the issues of climate change that affect that part of the world even more dramatically than here. So this is Debra Pritchard.
Than I do. I'm not an activist like she has been her whole life. My background is more of a business person in sales and marketing and organizational development. The difference I do have is that when I was 59, I signed up for the Peace Corps. And I went to a very remote island in the Philippines. And I spent, after my Peace Corps service, the next 10 years of my life there. So I'm not a first worlder anymore. I'm certainly not a third worlder, but I'm somewhere in between in no man's land. But what I did have is that lived experience that most Americans never get of living in a developing country at the level, not as a tourist, not as an expat, but as a resident of that country. I experienced climate change on a daily basis. I watched favorite reefs die from dynamite fishing, cyanide fishing, sea temperature rise, sea acidity rise. So I tried to get a recycling started there from the masses of pollution that came on the currents of just the ocean and you accumulated on this incredibly gorgeous island. Unsuccessful, one, because where I, as a Westerner, saw endangered species, oh my gosh, they're eating turtles. The masses saw dinner on the table. And it's just a real different perspective you get. And that appreciation for the global South and what it's experiencing. I returned here to the US the day before lockdown, and I joined IWC. I, by this time, am a rabid environmentalist and asked them if I could represent them at COP to try to connect with other people for our philanthropic efforts. So I studied about the issues. I went for a prep to the research and universities had a program. The faith community had a program. I studied, I interviewed people who had gone to COP before to ask them what I should be doing, what I should expect. I interviewed the head of the UN's biodiversity lab. I mean, I was ready. I studied the dynasties and the pharaohs. I was pumped and ready. Have you ever heard of that, the children's book, Lemony Snicket, A Series of Unfortunate Events? I arrived at COP, totally boosted, had my shots, had my flu shot, had my typhoid shot, and got COVID. I also was scammed on my housing, so I arrived without any place to stay and with COVID that kind of took me out for the first 5 days. I made up for it my last 3 days there. And so I'm going to tell you from my experience, where I'm coming from, a first worlder, but with third world experiences. COP is a big business. I walked into the Blue Zone and it was like I was back in sales and marketing at a trade show. A lot of glitz. There were pavilions, they call them, kind of marketing efforts by countries, by organizations like WHO, World Wildlife Federation. There are multinational banks there, development banks, all kind of telling you what they're doing. And one thing that was strange, you'd have these masses of people walking in the aisles and you'd run into a television program, people interviewing a VIP to put on their local news in their home country. So it was this really high energy, you could just feel it. And very simplified, COP, the annual COPs are a culmination of the previous year's work by thousands, hundreds of thousands of people working on climate change. Governments, NGOs, private and public businesses. So all of these have the chance to have done their work for the year. Then they meet up with their compadres and talk about where their research has gone for the last year. What's the next step? Very oversimplification, but COP is really, it's not even an onion. I don't know what it is. There's so many different layers. So you have the government negotiations. You have people sharing their research that they've done, maybe on a COP committee. And then you have people who are looking to add 3 or 4 words to an outcome, to a policy. So the energy is fragmented and palpable. When I got to go to COP, my first meeting was the US State Department briefing. And I found, there were about 50 of us in the room, I found the people really informative. It was very casual. And I was impressed with their competency. One of the people had actually written a lot of the Paris Agreement. So it gave me a different perspective. And actually after COP, they gave us, this is the State Department briefing. So you can see it was very intimate. And the woman in the middle there is who wrote a lot of the policy for the US. They're very happy not to be under the Trump administration, and they were enthusiastic. That was really nice to see. And some of the things that you don't hear a lot about, you hear the loss and damage, but the US and Ghana are chairing a forest, making sure our forests are healthy. The There also was developed an International Drought Resilience Alliance that's chaired by Spain and Senegal. So there's a lot of policies that are developed there that most of us just don't hear about. Loss and damage was the big one. My problem with that was the same as Gutierrez's, is that yes, it moves us towards justice, climate justice, but there's not enough money in the world to compensate the frequency and the severity of the disasters that we're going to be facing. My next thing was going to Biden's speech. I thought it was a solid speech, but it was disappointing. He highlighted the methane pledge, where I really am enthusiastic or devout about non-proliferation of fossil fuels. He avoided that. He avoided that first speech of his, loss and damage. So it was, disappointing. What I did see were negotiations between governments and the chance for smaller organizations to access, maybe in the halls, it might be very impromptu, but they could avoid the Washington bureaucracy and actually get to some decision makers, including John Kerry. I saw a willingness from the research universities. The first time I saw this idea of a caring community where we all come together, share our knowledge for the global good, which is very heartening to me, because I think we need to get away from that profit and power into how are we going to come together and surmount the obstacles that are coming with climate change. I was only there a couple days, so I did not see the NGO involvement in the negotiations. Carmen did, she's very involved in that, and I know that happened. I didn't see it. We were in Egypt, and it is a police state, and they were very good at keeping the NGOs away. You had to take a bus to get to the NGO, the green zone, as it's called. I also didn't see what I expected and was enthusiastic about, was because it was in the global south, I thought there would be a lot of people there. The UN, the daily news there said there were 600 fossil fuel representatives. I mean, they didn't have fossil fuel representative put on their forehead or anything, so I didn't see them. But you saw a lot of Westerners rather than the global south, which disappointed me. There were 600 fossil fuel guys, and that was more than 10 of the African representative countries together. So that was disappointing to me. I hung out at the pavilions for the youth, for the indigenous people, Pacific Islanders, and a lot of the Scandinavian countries. I don't know if it's their socialist behavior, but they did commit long before the loss and damage fund was endorsed. They were committing. And that, again, is disappointing to me from a US standpoint. No matter what our US climate team says there, no matter what the executives say there, they have to come back and work with the US government here. And the House, the executive branch does not have the power to just say, yes, we're going to do this. So it's a big disappointment to me, because they face opposition now in the House to getting these things done. My most admired group is the scientist group. They foresee our ecological collapse, but they keep on working to avert that. They keep on working. I have the highest regard for scientists. I was on a plane with one of them 5 hours back to London, and we talked the whole flight. He had prepared 20 side events for the UN Environmental Committee, and he was just wiped out. And he left early. But he said he hopes that the indigenous peoples are the last to go and the rich people go first. I then left Sharm, went back to Cairo, and I witnessed 22 million people living in pretty obvious poverty. 2 million of them lived in the cemetery, and they call it the City of the Dead. The trash and pollution between Giza and Cairo was amazing. It was hard for me, coupled with what I saw at COP, going in with my idealistic sense and seeing what I saw at COP, and then coupled with my experiences being in huge, enormous cities like Manila, Bangkok, Nairobi, Beijing, and Delhi. And I came back with an existential crisis, much worse than COVID. I agree with the sciences about ecological collapse, and it took me a while to resurface after COP27. So now my focus is on local success, having replicable models that cities can look at that will then pressure our federal government into action. And lastly, banding together as a compassionate community so that we can face those obstacles that are sure to come. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Debra. I am so glad you are.
Okay, what you're seeing up here is the faces who come together every other the second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock in the morning, California time, but from around the world. The women of the IWC, and that the acronym stands for International Women's Convocation, that Debra is on the board of, and at which she gave this presentation. She also mentioned a woman, Carmen, who has been long involved with the IWC, with the UN activism. She's a Bolivian engineer who's been just amazing at going to all of these conferences and lobbying for climate justice. So that's, and the other thing about Debra is that she wasn't able to be here today because she had a long planned trip to Spain. She's right in Spain right now, and part of her time was a bird watching expedition for a week in central Spain. So she's really taken on a connection with the environment, and she's willing to come and speak to us another time, either for a social justice forum or a service. And she will be, because she's part of the San Luis Obispo Church climate community is what they call it, she will be involved with the district assembly, PSW service assembly at the end of April, that our Reverend Maggie is active involved. So we will have an opportunity to have more engagement with Debra. So, and now we will switch to a song by our the founder of the Church of the Philippines, Toribio Camara, and it is, let's see, do we have a video for this? No, we're just going to sing it from the screen. So I invite you to stand, get a little energy going here for our singing of Oh, the Beauty of Our Life. It's actually in our hymnal, number 182, has been a long time, and we sing it every year, so you may recognize it.
Wise and gracious ways to every hour you are along our daily living. Should not the home of wondrous grace beyond our ken? How wide the path, how close the goal, stars shone. Oh, the beauty of a life that in moments care of the soul that goes above, that is for self as well as others, that every day embodies praise for every good. This is the faith to which we turn our God and goal.
Thank you, Lily, and everyone. And I did neglect to welcome the people on our Zoom congregation this morning. I see on my iPad there are 15 of you, so welcome to our Sunday morning service about Calapayan, our annual service. And now we will have an update from Calapayan itself via the slideshow. Oh, and my great good thanks to Jarius for this wonderful Philippine flag that he put up as our opening scene here. So Jarius is very creative and we appreciate him. Okay, Calapayan Sunday. Our first slide shows what's now the Facebook page cover portrait of the Calapayan Congregation Facebook page. That you're invited, if you're on Facebook and you want to follow what's going on in Calapayan, this is a new page that was started by, and this banner is actually something you've probably seen before in some of the pictures. It's hanging in the chapel at Calapayan, and it was created many years ago when our partnership first started, which was in 2007, 16 years ago. Last year we had a cake celebrating our 15th anniversary. And you'll see on the left, the picture is truncated because that's the picture off Facebook, Monte Vista and Calapayan, and at the bottom, partnership. So it's emblazoned there for the world to see on Facebook about our partnership. So let's go ahead, Jarius, to the next one. And I'm introducing you here to Michelle Hino, who is our new contact from the congregation. Last year I talked about and showed you a couple pictures of Maricel Hino, who had been our contact for a while. Maricel is the daughter of our minister, Samuel Hino. There's a lot of Hinos in our congregation. And they are indeed all related. Michelle is married to Renato Hino, who is the brother of our minister, Samuel. Anyway, so she's been designated now as our contact, and that's Renato and her family on the left, and her own cover picture that she put on her Facebook page. So Michelle is the one who has provided us with a lot of these pictures. So let's go ahead to the update from Christmas with the Sunday service by Donnie Boy-Hino, whom you've heard of before. He's also another branch of the Hino family. He's actually our youth leader there, who has become a graduate of the ministerial formation program there in the Church of the Philippines. And he has graduated from college with a degree in engineering and is working for the city of Bayawan as a city engineer. So he led the service and often does as well. Okay, let's go ahead to their celebration with gift exchange, and go ahead, Darius, the kids, and you see how Michelle has a good time creating interesting, fun slides to send us. All of these are done specifically for us, their partners, whom they really treasure and love a whole lot. Okay, go ahead. Celebrating candle lighting. Apparently every first of the month they do the candle lighting. Notice there in the left-hand corner of the picture is the banner in the front left side of the chapel. Okay, go ahead. And they are not far from the beach. And so they go to the beach and have celebrations, and they did on New Year's Day. Looks a little chilly there, a little chillier than when we were there the last time. Okay. And now these are some more recent pictures that she sent. Samuel is our minister. He's been in the minister of the church ever since it was founded almost 30 years ago at a Sunday service. Go ahead, Jarius. And always after the service, there's a feast. And there they are in front and outside the chapel itself. Go ahead, Jarius. And now the Calapayan boxes have arrived. We sent them in, I believe, early November, and it takes that long to get there because they go in the container ships. This year we sent 5 boxes, and the documentation that they're now about to open them. And these are her words. Thank you very much, sponsor. Monte Vista Avenue is how she put it. Because on the next slide you'll see, Jarius, she also sends a picture of the labels verifying. They're very good about verification that they've received it. And there in the very bottom corner is Michelle herself on the job, reporting to us. Next. And here they are, opening the boxes. We've been there when they actually open bags, and they're very organized about dividing things up so that there's equal distribution of items to people. And so you see the bags that they're picked up after the cans of protein and the shoes were laid out and divided up. So that's, and one more picture of this. And she said, they're happy. Yes. Next. And then there was some damage to the facility with windstorms recently, and so the men of the congregation do a lot of the work. And again, here we have her words. Thanks to the members of the Calapayan congregation for their cooperation. Dante, Renato, Jean-Marc, Samuel Jr., son of the minister, and Sonny Lumeron. So they're fixing the chapel. That is the chapel on the right-hand side there. Okay. And Renato Hino is the husband of Michelle, so she took a picture of him helping with the cleanup. And here we go now to Jarius. Some more pictures, child dedication. We call it child dedication as well, so that's part of the Unitarianism. And the new officers. So I was pleased to see that they have a ritual installation of officers here that also, so they've got that. And again, the banner on the left. I might point out that the T-shirts, we have a donor who every year gives us a whole lot of brand new T-shirts from the Brea 8K run walk. And they love those T-shirts because when they get them, they're brand new. They're not the used clothing that a lot of other donations, including ours, are. Okay? And here's an example of the work that they do in the community, the cleanup. And, okay, Jarius. And the last one from Michelle, and this segment of is the Michelle herself saying, "Come to Calapayan," our partnership contact. And that is the hill that looking out. The ocean is, you can barely see it, but it is over there. So there are some flat areas. Yes? Where is it exactly? Well, we're going to get there. Next, Jarius, here we go. So speaking of, so this coming July, we are planning another congregational trip for the first time since 2015. and Reverend Maggie is committed to going. So this is a come on, an invitation to those of you who are interested in traveling and a little more and getting to know our partners in the Philippines. So, and the dates have been set that work. We started with Maggie's church calendar, what will work. And so we've got an actual itinerary worked out tentatively that we're developing, and starting on leaving LA on July 16th, a Saturday. The prices are the lowest on a Saturday compared to the other dates that we were looking at. And this the 16th? July? Well, it's a work in progress. What can I say? Anyway, so the bumper sticker there, the most radical thing we can do is to introduce people to another, was the motto of the UU Partner Church Council for the 30 years of its existence until it ended a year or two ago, partly because of COVID. So anyway, let's go on to the next one. Here's the map showing where we're going from California to the Philippines across the ocean. It's a 15-hour flight across the Pacific Ocean, and there'll be another map more specifically of where they are in the Philippines to that question. Okay, let's. So, the last time that I went was Maribel. Dana went with me, and there were also another Monte Vista member and 3 members from the Fox Valley Church in Appleton, Wisconsin, which has a long time active partnership. So there were 6 of us who traveled, and they're here. I'm going to walk you through a preview of coming attractions, basically. So we're arriving in Manila, and the first couple days we settle in, adjust to jet lag, and do a couple things that introduce us to the culture of the Philippines, starting with a visit to the Ethnographic Museum, the Ayala Museum, and going to the intramurals walled city and site of the assassination, the execution actually, of Jose Rizal, the national hero and radical activist of the Philippines himself. Okay, next one. And here in Manila, we hope to also visit the Manila congregation from which I read the opening words this morning, Bikutan. It's a small indigenous group in the close to the slums of Manila. They started in an open air garage. The first time I was there in 2000, first time I was there at that place was 2012. They didn't even have a building. Now it's in a very condensed neighborhood. Maribel and I were there for Easter Sunday, 2015, and they have a new building, and Norma posted our roof in front of the door got damaged. I'm not quite sure what that polycarbonate is. Somebody here might know, but I don't. But that was what she posted on Facebook. And then the next picture shows the church inside, and they have a very active RE program for all the children, and that's Sunday. And I put in her posted words from Filipino, and just to show you how close it is to Spanish, actually, for religious education, and also Lot, that's the name of the woman on the right who gave the homily. So it's a very actively lay-led congregation. They have had a couple professional ministers at different times, but most of the time it's lay-led. Next one. And then, so these are the leaders. Bob Guerrero is the professional sportscaster whom we always check in with, and Norma and Merlin are the women who really keep it going for some years. Next. And then one thing we're hoping to do this time is there's a retreat center that's just developed in the past 3 years since we were last there, run by a UU minister who was in Oregon, Joseph Santos Lyons. Do you know him, Maggie? I don't know. Who was retired to the Philippines. His wife is Filipina, and they've started this retreat center an hour and a half outside Manila. We're hoping to go there. We haven't made that connection solid yet, but here's he calls it the Center for Organizing Renewal and Leadership, and he does retreats and other group gatherings there. And you can see the beauty of it. Next one, Jarius. And here, obviously, the Bicutan people also have visited there, and they do a lot of things together. So we're going on now to the map to show you the map that the Philippines is an archipelago of 7,104 islands, many of them not inhabited. And the central islands are called the Visayas. And the island where most of the Unitarians are is the island of Negros in the center there. And Negros itself is has divided into two provinces, Negros Oriental and Negros Occidental. And Calapayan, as you see in the red on the right, is on the left. And on the right-hand side in the corner is the city of Dumaguete, which is the capital city of Negros Oriental. So the next thing we do is we fly from Manila, next slide, on a 1 hour air flight from Manila to Dumaguete on Cebu Airline. And from there we next go, here we are in Dumaguete, a beautiful boardwalk on the city, on the sea. It's also the center of Silliman University. A couple years ago, we had Rachel and Sid Silliman speak to us. Rachel is from Dumaguete. Her husband, Sid, is connected with the family that founded Silliman University many years ago. They met there. Next. And here we are at the hotel there in Dumaguete that we're hoping to stay at again. The CNL Bayview Inn with a rooftop breakfast place, breakfast room. And then we will be hosted by and spending time with the UU Church of the Philippines headquarters there. They love to make signs. This picture that shows the interior of the sanctuary, which from pictures I've seen has been renovated and upgraded, with Reverend Rebecca Sienas, who spoke here, who visited us some years ago. In your 2014, I believe it was, in your order of service is the history of our partnership, which tells you about that. I know a lot of you are new and might be interested in joining us, but I'm trying to update that as well. Anyway, Rebecca is about my age. Rebecca has had a stroke and is not functioning very well right now. We will be able to see her and engage with her a little bit. She's living with her son and daughter-in-law, but she is the daughter of the founder, whose song we just sang, Toribio Kamada. After he was it's quite a story actually, in 1988, he was assassinated, he was murdered in the Philippines because of his land rights activism. And Rebecca, in 1988, and Rebecca, it was the year that the Church of the Philippines was to be admitted into the membership with the Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA, at our General Assembly in Palm Springs in June. He was assassinated in March. She came in his stead, accepted the membership, and ended up going on to, she was in her 30s at the time, going to Meadville, Lombard, and becoming a UU minister and the leader of the church there in her father's stead. So That's the kind of the heritage of the church there, which is all documented in a book called Maglepe Universalist by Fred Muir, who's now retired, but it was the minister of the Church of the Church in Annapolis, Maryland, and is quite the expert on the Church of the Philippines. He's studied and gone back quite a bit. So, go ahead to the next one. Another view of the Church of the Philippines headquarters there in Dumaguete, with all the signs that they love. God is love and salvation is for all people is one of the proclamations of the Church of the Philippines. By the way, they have 8 principles, not the 7 principles we have. They have the same 7 principles, but the first one that they proclaim is God is love. Next. Here we are in Hinobaan. Oh, so then from Dumaguete, it's a 4-hour ride to Hinobaan, which is the city closest to Calapayan, which is in the jungle. Just to show you the area of Hinobaan, close to where we stay. Next. And here we ride in a van. We've already communicated with the ground transportation, the van, and Ricky is still renting vans, and we'll make that available and be our driver again to go to Hinobaan and the next one. Then going up to our chapel at Calapayan is actually about a 45-minute hike up into the jungle. And so these are some historic pictures showing the hike, and the picture on the right shows the culvert that we helped fund way back in the early days of the partnership, because prior to that culvert and concrete bridge, they'd had to actually hike down into the ravine to cross the river to get into the village. It was quite a deal. And this is the way they would carry the bags of the Calapayan on the heads. The young man did that. Okay, next one. Getting up to the top of the hill, the coconut trees, and this is one of the times I was there. Dante was literally in the tree, bringing down a coconut that were then cut. And I think the next slide shows just, I have a picture of Maribel drinking, but it's not here. Okay, and then in that bag we took a lot of stuffed animals. This is a tribute photo for Eleanor Martindale, who was really good at collecting, our late beloved member, who was terrific at collecting stuffed animals for the children. And so they love those. And next, here we are again with the children outside. This is in front of the chapel. Next. Again, this is a memoriam photo. You perhaps remember that we had a couple of tragedies of family members dying. Josue, the oldest son of the minister, died of tetanus, and his wife Emily died of a stroke at the age of 50. And so we remember them. Go ahead. Here we are at the place that's closest for us to be able to stay, which is a very downscale resort, the Brazzaville Beach Resort, where we had a lovely breakfast on the sands. And next one, please. And we had a couple parties down there. When we were there in 2015, we went for the college graduation of our student who was the first one to graduate from college. And this was a celebration after the graduation with her 1-year-old daughter, or daughter also turning 1 that day, Edna. And next, Jarius. the beach party that they always love. And one more. So, join us in July. This is the whole congregation. Mabuhay is the Filipino word for to life, and the celebration word, the toasting word. And so this is your invitation to consider joining Maggie and me, and I know I've got a couple other likely candidates already, and Lee Boke-Burke from now in Ann Arbor will be going with us, and maybe a few other people from either Ann Arbor or the Fox Valley Church. So we're gathering the group together. So one more picture here. Come and see a Philippine sunrise. So thank you for your attention and your consideration. So now I invite you. Oh, thank you. And I invite you now to, we're going to, before we actually sing this congregational song, the Maglape Universalist, which is the words will be on the screen, we have a short video showing you the Church of the Philippines group in Dumaguete singing it. I just love this video because it shows the energy of their singing. They sing it a little bit a different pace, but you'll see the energy, and the one particularly in the front, Tirso Fonseca is a minister of one of the other congregations. He's just really a live wire. So let's show this video and then we'll sing after. To Maria and her presentation.
My presentation is on this thumb drive. And I showed up this morning, and now I'm very frustrated because it doesn't work at all. So I don't know if you noticed, I have these high boots here. And, right after the service, if you'll join me on the patio, we're going to put this out there and stomp on it for a while. I have some great pictures of our kids on there. I just can't tell you, in working with their pictures, how to the very last one of them, they just look like great kids. It just, to me, participating in this particular program of sponsorship is the best thing that we do here at Monte Vista. So my presentation is all about some things that the kids do, the successes that they've had this year, and I'll just name a few. We've got pictures of kids in basketball and volleyball uniforms that play. We've got pictures of kids participating in something I knew nothing about, called, if I can approach the pronunciation, Lingo Nga Wiki, which is a month celebration of a national language in the Philippines, something that started back in the 30s and has been adopted and carried on to make the language that they call Filipino the national language and unite and develop the country. Very deeply held by our kids and the Filipinos, and they have dances and celebrations and parades and games and things. We have a former student of ours who just graduated from a midwifery program, and I think a couple of others that are in that kind of a program. We've got high school students, 3 of them that just went to school on Saturday and Sunday to earn their computer competency certificate. So they're doing things, and they're doing well at them. They earn a lot of awards in school. Michelle took a bunch of pictures of kids, like on, obviously, Awards Day. We had Rochelle Hino was the second runner-up for Muse in the UN celebration, whatever that is. She's shown in a beautiful red formal. You don't get to see today. Maybe next year it'll work out to see the more shots of the inside of the church. And then there's a boy sitting on the head of an alligator, which I hope is a statue, not a real alligator, but you really can't tell. Okay, I'll move right on. I know it's getting a little bit late too. I'm also here to talk to you about the numbers portion of our program. Our first numbers that I want to cover are 22 and 1 to 12. 22 is the number of kids that we sponsored this last year, and 1 to 12 are the grades that they're in. Our kids go to a public school, which is free, but as if you've brought kids up through school, you know that that's not all of what it costs. They need shoes, they need backpacks, they need school supplies and things like that, and so that's what our sponsorship money goes to them, so that they can use it for that. Most of our children are the children of subsistence farmers. They don't have extra money. They attend everything in t-shirts and shorts and jeans types of things. Are you telling me something?
No, I'm just saying
Flip-flops, yeah, yeah. So our second set of numbers is 120 and 150, or any amount. If you brought kids through school, you probably also remember that it costs a lot more for a high school student than an elementary student. And that becomes so important at that age. It's a lot easier to drop out of high school than it is to drop out of elementary school. And the things that you need the money for, the after-school activities and things, become more and more important. So the amounts of our sponsorship, and if you'd like to write this down on your check, you could get out your checkbook right now so that you will not forget these important numbers, because we're going to have the basket up here in just a minute. So $120 supports the education for a year of a child grade 1 to 6, and $150 for a 7 to 12 child. You can sponsor a child, and we'll assign you one by name. You can choose if you want a high school or elementary student, or if you want to just make a donation that goes together with other donations to help sponsor a child, that child will be sponsored by our congregation. So any amount, you can do it either way, sponsor a child or just donate toward one. 17 of our students had an individual sponsor last year. That's amazing to me for a congregation our size, and that it's not a teeny tiny little amount of money. And then we had 5 more that were sponsored by the congregation as a whole. Okay, our next number is 2,910. You don't have to memorize that, but that's our total bill last year for the student sponsorships. And maybe there's just a little bit more. It's very inexpensive, the administration of the money. I think we pay something for the wiring, like $10, and then there's a little amount, I can't remember, maybe somewhere below $50 of what it costs to administer it at that end. So that's what we're looking for today. We want to do it again like we did last year. And I have to thank all the sponsors that are present and just the congregation as a whole for being so generous. The mechanics of this, oh, I have one more number I forgot. It's 31, and that number is for March 31st or April 1st, if you want to put it that way, but the 31st is a Friday, and that's our deadline. That's when we stop collecting for Calapayan, and that has to do with when the wires can go from the office. That's all complicated, I won't go into. But I have to remind you, if you put money in the collection plate today, if you put just plain cash, that will go toward Calapayan sponsorships. If you write a check, please, in the memo line, put Calapayan or Calapayan sponsorship, something to let Tracy, our bookkeeper, know what the money is for either the 120 or 150 amount or any amount. And then some of us are paying by PayPal these days, those of you at home that are watching. And when you use PayPal for this, there is a place to designate what the money is for. If you, I get cheers for that. Yeah. And you can also, of course, mail your check in. You don't have to write it today, but I can't say it too many times, designate that it's for Calapayan. Okay, I think we're there. Our basket is here. We'd like to have you come to the front. If I didn't say this, your pledge, if you are putting money in the basket today for your pledge, it's also helpful to designate that on the envelope or the check, so that we don't have any confusion about things going to the wrong account. So Lily is going to play for us, and I invite you now to come forward.
So I'm asking our Reverend Maggie to extinguish the chalice because she is going with us to the Philippines, and we're sending her on her way with this hat that was actually gifted to me the first time I was there in 2010. I noticed this hat on the head of a young woman named Helen, who I learned later wasn't actually a member of the congregation, but she was part of the community at the time, and she immediately gave it to me. So I'm giving it to you, from the Philippines to you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community and partnership, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you, Maggie. And I invite you all to join with me in the reading of the closing words, the words of the Filipina sister, Maria Ressa, founder of the radical news organization, The Rappler, for the work that she and her colleagues have done over the years, won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2021. So, how to build meaning in our lives. Meaning is not something you stumble across or what someone gives you. You build it through every choice you make, the commitments you choose, the people you love, and the values you hold dear. Mabuhay.